The signal came at midnight, station time. Lieutenant Park sat at her console aboard the Galactic Union monitoring station called Gentle Dawn. She had been watching the same empty screens for 6 hours. Nothing ever happened on the night shift. The galaxy was quiet, or so everyone believed. Then her equipment screamed. Jumped in her seat. Red lights flashed across her console. A signal was coming through, repeating over and over. She ran the translation software and waited. When the words appeared on her screen, her blood went cold. "Please help us. They are taking our children. They are burning our cities. We are dying. Please, someone, anyone, help us." The message repeated, again and again, a voice filled with terror and desperate hope. Press the emergency alert. Within minutes, the command center filled with officers from a dozen different species. They gathered around her console, watching the signal play on the main screen. A small species from the system. They were not members of the Galactic Union, just a quiet civilization on the edge of known space. And they were being destroyed. Captain Sun arrived last. He was the commander of the Earth defense vessel Iron Promise, currently docked at the station for a diplomatic visit. Humans had joined the Galactic Union only 40 years ago. They were still considered newcomers. Children, really, in the eyes of species that had traveled the stars for thousands of years. Watched the message play. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had seen war before. He had heard screams like this before, and every time he had done something about it. "Who is attacking them?" he asked. A diplomat answered. There were tall, elegant beings with silver skin. "The Dominion, a slaver empire from the outer regions. They take populations. They sell them. It is terrible, but they operate outside Union law. We cannot interfere." "Cannot," repeated. "Will not," another delegate said. This one was a species of small, careful beings known for their love of rules. "They are not Union members. We have no treaty with them. If we attack them, we risk war. The Council will never approve military action." Stared at the screen. The message kept playing, "Please help us. They are taking our children." "Call the Council," he said, "now." The emergency session happened within the hour. Representatives from 30 species gathered in the Great Hall. The signal played for all of them. They watched the images that came with the message. Cities on fire, ships descending from the sky, people running, screaming, being captured. Then they voted. "We will observe and document," the Council announced. "We will send a formal protest to the Dominion, but we will not intervene militarily. The risk is too great. They are not our responsibility." Stood in the observer section, watching the vote happen. 28 species voted against intervention. Only 2 abstained. Earth was not allowed to vote. Humans were observers only, too new to have full membership. But humans were also the only ones who seemed to care. Walked to the center of the hall. This was against protocol. Observers did not speak during council sessions, but he spoke anyway. "They asked for help," he said. His voice was calm but firm. "They sent their signal to everyone. They asked the galaxy to save them, and you are going to watch them die." "Captain," the council leader said, "you are out of order." "I am requesting permission to respond," continued. "Under Earth's sovereign authority, we are not asking the Union to fight. We are asking you to let us fight." Silence fell over the hall. The delegates looked at each other. Humans wanted to go alone. Against the Dominion, that was suicide. "Your fleet is small," the diplomat said. "You have 1 heavy cruiser and 4 escort ships. They have hundreds of vessels. You cannot win." "Maybe not," said, "but we can try." More silence. Then slowly the council leader nodded. "If Earth wishes to respond independently, the Union will not stop you. But understand this, Captain. We will not rescue you. If you go alone." "Understood," said. He turned and walked out of the hall. Within 3 hours, the Iron Promise and its escort ships disconnected from the station. Navigator plotted the course too. He was young, barely 25, but he was the best tactical officer had ever served with. "Course laid in, Captain," Du said. "We will arrive in 14 hours. "What do we know about the fleet?" asked. "Intelligence reports suggest 40 to 50 ships in the system. They have been attacking for 2 days. They have no real military. They were never warriors." Nodded. 40 ships against 5. Those were terrible numbers. Lieutenant stood at her station, listening. She had requested transfer to the Iron Promise the moment announced his mission. She was the one who had heard the signal first. She wanted to be there when they answered it. "Captain," she said, "I have been monitoring Union channels. The other species are talking about us." "What are they saying?" Hesitated. "They are saying we are fools. They are saying we are flying to our deaths. They think we do not understand how the galaxy works." Almost smiled. "Maybe we do not understand. Maybe that is our advantage." The Iron Promise entered faster than light travel. The stars stretched into lines of light. The crew settled into their stations, preparing for what was coming. In the observation lounge, stood alone, watching space blur past the windows. He thought about the signal. He thought about the children being taken, the families being torn apart. He thought about what it meant to ask for help and have no one answer. Humans knew that feeling. They had faced it in their own history. Wars where no one came. Disasters where the world looked away. They knew what it was like to scream into the darkness and hear only silence. Maybe that was why they could not ignore this signal. Maybe that was why, when everyone else voted to observe and document, the humans chose to fight. Back on the station, an elder delegate from a species called the watched the human ships disappear into the distance. They were ancient. They had been part of the Union for 10,000 years. They had seen many species come and go. "Interesting," the elder said to no one in particular. A younger stood beside him. "What is interesting, elder?" "The humans. They are the first species in Union history to volunteer for someone else's war, not for territory, not for resources, not for power, just because someone asked for help." The younger looked confused. "Is that not foolish?" The elder was quiet for a long moment. "Perhaps, or perhaps it is something we have forgotten how to be." He turned away from the window. "Let us watch what happens. I suspect the humans may surprise us all." The Iron Promise flew on through the darkness, carrying its crew toward a battle they could not win, for people they had never met, in a war that was not theirs. Because someone had asked for help. And that was enough. The Iron Promise dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly into hell. Navigator Du gripped his console as alarms filled the bridge. The showed chaos. Dozens of alien warships surrounded a burning world. Smoke rose from the planet below in thick columns. Small craft descended toward the surface like hungry insects, and even from orbit they could see the explosions. "Fleet detected," Du reported, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I count 43 vessels. They have seen us." Captain Sun stood at the center of the bridge. His face showed nothing, but inside, he felt the weight of what they were facing. 43 against 5. Every tactical training he had ever received told him this was impossible. "Open communications," he ordered. "All frequencies." Lieutenant Park worked her console. "Channel open, Captain." Before could speak, another voice filled the bridge. It was deep and cruel, filled with amusement. "Human vessels, this is Commander of the Dominion. You are far from your territory. This system belongs to us now. Leave and we will let you live." Walked closer to the... He could see the command ship now, a massive vessel covered in sharp angles and dark metal. It looked like a weapon itself. "Commander," replied, "this is Captain Sun of the Earth defense vessel Iron Promise. The sent a distress signal. We are here to answer it." Silence for a moment, then laughed. "Answer it with 5 ships. Human, you must not understand what is happening here. We have been harvesting this world for 3 days. Their military fell in hours. Their leaders are already in chains. There is nothing left to save. Then you will not mind if we try, said. Another pause. When spoke again, the amusement was gone. This is your only warning. Leave now or die with them. Looked around the bridge. His crew watched him, every officer and enlisted sailor. They had all volunteered for this mission. They all knew the numbers, and not one of them looked away. We are not leaving, said simply. He cut the communication. Battle stations, he ordered. All ships attack formation, target the nearest cruisers. We push through to the planet. The Iron Promise surged forward. Its escort ships spread out beside it, smaller but fast. The fleet began to move, dozens of vessels turning toward the tiny human force. The first shots came seconds later. Energy beams lanced through space, lighting up the darkness. The Iron Promise shook as shields absorbed the impact. Called out damage reports while directed their return fire. Gunnery Sergeant Moon 1 commanded the weapons deck. He was a large man with calm eyes and steady hands. He had fought in 3 wars before joining the fleet. He knew how to hurt enemies. Targeting lead cruiser, 1 reported, firing main battery. The Iron Promise spoke with fire. Heavy rounds tore through space and slammed into the vessel. Its shields flickered, then failed. The second volley punched through its hull. The ship broke apart in a flash of light. 1 down, 1 said. But there were 42 more. The battle became a desperate dance. Human ships were smaller and faster than vessels. They ducked between enemy formations, firing constantly, refusing to stay still long enough to be targeted. It was not how galactic warfare was supposed to work. Most species fought at long range, careful and precise. Humans fought like they were already dead and had nothing to lose. The escort ship Brave Sun took heavy damage but kept fighting. Its captain, a woman named O, ordered her crew to seal the damaged sections and maintain fire. They destroyed another cruiser before their engines failed. Brave Sun is dead in space, reported. They are requesting rescue. Send the Hammer of Soul to pick up survivors, ordered. We keep pushing forward. On the planet below, they watched the battle from their burning cities. Elder stood in the ruins of the Capitol building, surrounded by guards and refugees. They had sent their signal 3 days ago, expecting nothing. No one ever answered calls for help in this galaxy. But someone had come. Who are they? A young asked. Humans, replied. From a world called Earth. They joined the Union recently. I do not know why they are here. They watched a human descend through the atmosphere, dodging anti-aircraft fire from ground forces. It landed in the main square, and soldiers poured out. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that seemed crude compared to technology. But they were here. Chief Medical Officer Shin Bai was the first human to set foot on soil. She carried a medical kit and a pistol. Behind her came 20 Marines and 3 medics. Their orders were simple: find survivors and get them to safety. Medical team spread out, Bai ordered. We have wounded everywhere, do what you can. A child ran toward them crying. She had been separated from her family. One of the Marines, a young man named Ho, knelt down and caught her. It is okay, he said, though he knew she could not understand his words. We are here to help. You are safe now. The child clung to him, trembling. Elder approached the human commander, who introduced himself as Lieutenant Dong Jun. The elder studied the human's face, had lived for 200 years. He had met many species, but he had never seen eyes like these. Why are you here? Asked. You called for help, Dongjun replied. We came. But you have no treaty with us. We have nothing to offer you. Why would you die for strangers? Dongjun looked at the burning city around them. He looked at the frightened huddled in the ruins. He looked at the sky, where his people were fighting and dying against impossible odds. Because you needed someone, he said, and we were close enough to hear. Above the planet, the battle raged on. The Iron Promise had taken serious damage. 3 hull breaches, shields at 40%, but they had destroyed 6 cruisers and the enemy formation was starting to scatter. Commander watched from his command ship. He was no longer laughing. "They fight like animals," his second officer said. "No tactics, no strategy, just aggression." "No," replied slowly. "They have tactics. They are just tactics we have never seen." He watched another vessel explode under human fire. "They do not care about dying. That makes them dangerous." He opened a communication to the Dominion Fleet Command. "This is Commander in the system. We require immediate reinforcements. The humans fight like they have nothing to lose." He paused, watching the Iron Promise tear through another cruiser. "Send everything. These creatures are not what we expected." On the surface, Dr. Shin-Bai worked on a wounded soldier. The alien's blood was blue, and his anatomy was different from anything she had trained on. But wounds were wounds. Bleeding was bleeding. She adapted, improvised, and saved his life. "Thank you," the soldier whispered. Bai looked at him. She was covered in his blood. She had not slept in 20 hours, and they were surrounded by enemies. "Save your thanks," she said gently. "We are not done yet." Above them the stars were on fire. Below them a world was dying. And in between, a handful of humans fought against an empire. Not because they thought they could win, but because someone had asked for help. And humans answered. 3 days had passed since the humans arrived. Private Sora sat in the ruins of what used to be a school. Around her, 200 refugees huddled together in the darkness. They were mostly children and elderly. The adults who could fight had gone to help defend the outer walls. Sora was 22 years old. She had joined the military because she wanted to help people. She had never expected to be here, on an alien world, protecting children she could not even speak to. But here she was. A small child sat beside her. His name was, or at least that was what the other called him. He had been alone when the humans found him, hiding in a collapsed building. His family was gone, taken by the probably. He had not spoken since. Sora shared her food bar with him. It was military rations, not very tasty, but ate it carefully. When he finished, he leaned against her shoulder and closed his eyes. She did not move. She just sat there, rifle in her lap, watching the door. Outside, the city was still burning. Ground forces had been pushed back, but they kept attacking. Every few hours, another assault came. The humans held the line, but barely. Engineer Wu worked in the basement of the planetary defense building. He was surrounded by technicians, all of them trying to repair the planetary shield generator. If they could get the shield working, it would protect the city from orbital bombardment. The technology was far beyond anything Earth had. Wu should not have been able to understand it at all, but he was an engineer. He solved problems. That was what he did. "The power coupling is damaged," a technician explained through a translation device. "We do not have replacement parts. The system is too complex to repair with what we have." Wu studied the machine. It was elegant, beautiful, really. Every component was precisely designed to work with every other component. If one piece failed, the whole system failed. Human technology was not like this. Human technology was ugly, simple, and built to break. "Do you have wire?" Wu asked. "Wire? Metal wire, any kind." The technician looked confused but found some. Wu took it and began working. He stripped insulation. He connected pieces that were not designed to be connected. He used tape, glue, and raw metal to build bridges between broken systems. The watched in horror. This was not engineering, this was barbarism. But when Wu finished and powered on the generator, the shields hummed to life. "How?" the technician asked, amazed. "It does not need to be pretty," Wu said with a tired smile. "It just needs to work." In orbit, Captain Sun faced his worst moment. The reinforcements had arrived. The enemy fleet had doubled in size. The Iron Promise was barely functional. The brave sun was dead. The Hammer of Soul had lost half its crew. Only the Iron Promise and 2 escort ships remained. Navigator Du ran the calculations 3 times. Then he ran them again. "Captain," he said quietly, "our chances of survival are now less than 12%. Nodded. He had known this moment would come. He had known from the beginning. He activated the ship-wide communication. "All hands, this is the captain. I want to be honest with you. The situation is bad. We are outnumbered. We are damaged, and more enemy ships are coming." He paused. Around him, the bridge crew listened in silence. "We can retreat. If we leave now, we can probably escape. We can go home. We can tell the galaxy that we tried and that trying was enough." Another pause. "But if we leave, the die, all of them, every man, woman, and child on that planet, that will take them, sell them, and erase them from history. No one will remember they existed." He looked at his crew. One, all of them exhausted, all of them wounded, all of them watching him. "I am not ordering anyone to stay. This is volunteer only. If you want to leave, I understand. If you want to stay and fight, I will be proud to die beside you." Silence on the bridge. Then Lieutenant spoke. "Captain, I did not come all this way to leave before the end." Du nodded. "I stay." One simply loaded another magazine into his sidearm. "Same." Across the ship, the response came back. Every station, every deck, every sailor and marine. They stayed. Felt something in his chest. Pride, maybe. Or love. Or just the strange peace that came from knowing you were exactly where you were supposed to be. "Then we fight," he said, "until the end." On the planet's surface, Elder found Captain's communication officer, Lieutenant Park, in one of the makeshift command centers. She was coordinating evacuation routes, directing refugees to protected zones, and tracking movement all at once. Lieutenant said. Looked up. She had not slept in 3 days. Her eyes were red. Her hands shook from exhaustion. "Elder, what can I do for you?" Studied her for a long moment. "I need to understand something. Your captain, your crew, your soldiers. Why do you do this? You are dying for us. You know you cannot win. Why do you not leave?" Was quiet. Then she turned back to her console. "When I was a child," she said, "there was a disaster in my country. A building collapsed. Hundreds of people were trapped. The rescue teams worked for days, pulling people from the rubble. Many of the rescuers died. The building was unstable. Everyone knew it could collapse again at any moment." She paused. "My mother was one of the rescuers. I asked her why she went in when she knew it was dangerous. She told me something I have never forgotten." "What did she tell you?" Looked at. "She said that help is not help if you only give it when it is safe. Real help means risking yourself. Real help means choosing someone else's life over your own fear." She turned back to her work. "We are not here because we think we can win. We are here because you needed someone to come. That is all. That is enough." Stood in silence. He had lived 200 years. He had seen the rise and fall of empires. He had watched species join and leave the Galactic Union. He thought he understood how the galaxy worked. But he had never met humans before. That night Private Sora held while artillery shook the building. The child pressed his face against her chest, trembling. She sang to him, a lullaby her grandmother used to sing. He did not understand the words, but he understood the voice. Soft, safe, kind. Outside, the sky burned. But in that small room, surrounded by strangers, a human soldier held an alien child and promised him, without words, that she would not let him go. Across the galaxy, word spread. The Galactic Union Council watched the reports in disbelief. Humans were still fighting. Humans were still dying, and they were not stopping. Other species began to ask questions. Why would anyone do this? What drove these creatures to sacrifice themselves for strangers? and in the hearts of those who watched, something began to stir. Something that had been asleep for a very long time. Something that looked a lot like shame. The Iron Promise was dying. Captain Sun stood on the auxiliary bridge, blood running down the side of his face. The main bridge had been destroyed 2 hours ago. 17 crew members had died in that blast, now commanded from a small backup room deep in the ship's core. "Status report," he ordered. Navigator Du worked at a damaged console. "Shields are gone. Main engines are at 30%. We have breaches on decks 4, 7, and 9. Weapons are at half capacity." The other ships. Silent Wind is still fighting. Steel Dawn was destroyed 20 minutes ago. 2 ships left, against more than 60 vessels. Closed his eyes for a moment. He could feel the ship trembling around him. The Iron Promise had been his home for 8 years. She had carried him through 3 wars, and now she was dying just like her crew. "Sir," Lieutenant Park said, "I am detecting something strange. The fleet is changing formation." "Changing how?" "They are pulling back, creating a corridor, like they are making room for something." Looked at the tactical display. Was right. The ships were moving aside, opening a path toward the human vessels. Then they saw it. A massive ship emerged from behind the formation. It was 3 times the size of the Iron Promise. Its hull was covered with weapons. Energy crackled along its surface. "That is the Dominion Fist," Du said quietly. "Commander's flagship, the most powerful ship in the fleet." His voice filled the bridge. "Captain, you have fought well, better than I expected, but this ends now. Surrender and I will let your surviving crew live as prisoners. Refuse and I will destroy you all." Looked at his crew. The handful of officers still alive, they looked back at him. "I have one tactical option," Du said. "A direct charge into their formation. If we can get close enough to the flagship, we might be able to damage it before we are destroyed." "That is suicide," said. "We are already dead," Du replied. "This way we take something with us." Thought about his crew. He thought about the on the planet below. He thought about everything they had done and everything they had failed to do. "Do it," he said. The Iron Promise surged forward. Its damaged engines screamed with effort. Ships fired from all sides, but the human vessel refused to stop. It was like watching a wounded animal make one final charge. On the planet's surface, Gunnery Sergeant Moon 1 led a team of Marines toward the command post. They had received intelligence that Commander had a ground coordination center. If they could destroy it, the surface forces would lose organization. It was a desperate plan. The command post was heavily defended. They would probably not survive. "Ready?" one asked his team. "Ready, Sergeant." They attacked. The fighting was brutal. Soldiers were larger than humans and wore heavy armor, but one's team moved like shadows, using the destroyed buildings as cover. They fought with rifles, grenades, and when those ran out, knives and bare hands. Private Sora was not part of the assault team. She was supposed to stay with the refugees, but when they launched a counterattack against the shelter, she had no choice. They came through the walls, 20 soldiers, weapons blazing. Sora grabbed her rifle and started shooting. "Get the children to the basement," she screamed at the adults. "Go now." She stood in the doorway, firing until her magazine was empty. Then she grabbed another, and another. They kept coming. She took a hit to her shoulder, then her leg. She fell to her knees but did not stop shooting. Behind her, watched from the stairway, the human who had held him, fed him, and sang to him was standing between his people and death. She was bleeding. She was hurt, but she would not fall. A soldier got close enough to grab her. Sora pulled her combat knife and drove it into the gap in his armor. He fell. She tried to stand but could not. Her legs would not work. More came. Sora raised her pistol with shaking hands. Then something happened. The soldiers stopped. They looked at each other, confusion on their faces. Their communication devices were screaming with static. In orbit, the impossible had happened. Ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, dozens of them, then hundreds. The Galactic Union fleet had arrived. The Council had voted. After watching humanity sacrifice itself for 3 days, after seeing these strange creatures fight and die for strangers, the ancient species of the Union had finally found their shame. And they had come. "This is Admiral of the Galactic Union Combined Fleet," a voice announced across all frequencies. "To all vessels, you are ordered to withdraw immediately. This system is now under Union protection." Commander stood on the bridge of the Dominion Fist, staring at the tactical display. 500 Union ships surrounded his fleet. He had been moments away from destroying the humans, moments away from victory. "This is not your war," transmitted. "The Union voted against intervention. You have no authority here." "The vote has changed," Admiral replied. "Withdraw or be destroyed." Was silent for a long moment. He looked at the burning human ships. The Iron Promise was still moving toward him, even now, even with no hope of victory. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you change your vote? For these humans, for these primitive creatures who threw their lives away for strangers?" The answer came not from the Admiral, but from the elder who had watched the humans leave the station 3 days ago. "Because they reminded us of something we had forgotten," the elder said. "They reminded us what courage looks like. They reminded us what compassion means. They showed us that some things are worth dying for, even if you cannot win." The elder paused. "We were ashamed, Commander. We watched them fight alone, and we were ashamed of what we had become. So we came, not because we are brave, but because they were." Stared at the screen. His fleet was surrounded. The battle was lost. "All ships," he commanded bitterly, "withdraw." The fleet turned and fled. On the Iron Promise, Captain watched them go. He was barely conscious. Blood loss had made everything fuzzy, but he saw the Union ships. He saw the running. "We won," whispered, tears running down her face. "Sir, we won." Smiled. It hurt to smile, but he did it anyway. "No," he said, "they won. We just reminded them how." On the surface, Private Sora lay in a pool of her own blood. Medics were rushing toward her, carrying equipment she did not recognize. Was beside her, holding her hand, crying. "It is okay," she whispered to him. "You are safe now, you are safe." She closed her eyes. Above them, the stars were finally quiet. The battle was over. But the real change was just beginning. Private Sora woke up in a white room. She did not know where she was. The ceiling was strange. The air smelled different. She tried to move, but her body felt heavy, like she was wrapped in warm blankets. A face appeared above her, small, blue-skinned, familiar. Yes. The child looked at her with huge eyes. He had been crying. When he saw her eyes open, he made a sound that might have been laughter or might have been a sob. "She is awake," someone said in accented human speech. "The human soldier is awake." More faces appeared, doctors, human medics. They were all talking at once, checking machines, adjusting tubes. Sora tried to speak. Her throat was dry. "How long?" she managed. 4 days, a human voice answered. Dr. Shinbai leaned into view. She looked exhausted but was smiling. "You lost a lot of blood. The doctors saved your life. Their medical technology is impressive." Sora looked at. The child had not let go of her hand. "Is he okay?" she asked. "He refused to leave your side, would not eat, would not sleep, just sat here waiting for you to wake up." Sora squeezed the child's hand. She did not have words in his language, but she hoped he understood. He seemed to. 1 week after the battle, Captain Sun stood before the Galactic Union Council. He was still healing. His arm was in a sling. His face carried new scars. But he stood straight and tall, wearing his dress uniform, representing humanity in the greatest hall in the galaxy. "Captain," the council leader said, "you and your crew have done something unprecedented. You answered a call for help when no one else would. You fought against impossible odds. You lost many good people, and in doing so, you changed everything." Said nothing, he just listened. "The Galactic Union has existed for 12,000 years, the leader continued. In all that time, we have never seen a species act as yours did. We have never seen strangers die for strangers with no thought of reward. We have never seen courage like yours." The leader paused. "We were wrong to refuse this call. We were wrong to let fear guide our decisions. You showed us our error, and for that, we owe you more than we can ever repay." Finally spoke. "We did not come for payment. We came because someone asked for help. That is what humans do. It is what everyone should do." The council chamber was silent. "Perhaps," the leader said slowly, "perhaps that is the lesson we needed to learn." That day, the Galactic Union voted on two historic measures. First, they granted Earth full council membership. Humanity was no longer an observer. They had a voice. They had a vote. They had earned their place among the stars. Second, they created the first mutual defense pact in Union history. From that day forward, if any member species called for help, the others would answer. No debates, no votes, just action. They called it the Human Protocol. They requested a formal alliance with Earth. Elder spoke before the council, his voice shaking with emotion. "We sent our signal expecting nothing," he said. "We had heard that the galaxy was cold, that no one helped strangers, that survival was all that mattered." He looked at Captain. "The humans proved us wrong. They came when no one else would. They bled for us. They died for us. Not because we were valuable, not because we could offer them anything, but because we were suffering and they could not look away." Turned to address the full council. "That is what the humans brought to our world. Not just military force, not just medicine and supplies. They brought hope. They showed us that the universe is not as cold as we believed, that somewhere out there, someone will hear you when you cry for help." In the medical ward of the human hospital ship, Navigator Du visited his wounded friends. The crew of the Iron Promise had lost half its members. Good people, friends, family. But the survivors talked about something strange. They talked about how it felt to fight for something real, to know that every shot they fired, every wound they took meant something. They had saved 2 million lives, 2 million people who would have been taken, sold, and forgotten. "Was it worth it?" someone asked Du. He thought about the question for a long time. "Yes," he finally said. "I think it was. I think it was the most worthwhile thing I have ever done." Gunnery Sergeant Moon once sat alone in the observation deck, watching the stars. He had lost 7 members of his team in the ground assault, 7 friends who had followed him into certain death because he asked them to. He thought about their faces, their names, their families back on Earth who would receive folded flags and empty condolences. But he also thought about the children he had seen after the battle, playing in the ruins, laughing, alive. That was why his friends had died, so those children could laugh. He decided that was a good enough reason. Private Sora was released from the medical ward 2 weeks after the battle. She walked slowly, her wounds still healing, walked beside her holding her hand. The child had nowhere to go. His family was gone. His home was destroyed. But when Sora was told she would be returning to Earth, she made a request. "I want to take him with me." The officials were confused. Adoption across species was complicated. There were laws, regulations, procedures. "I do not care about procedures," Sora said. "He has no one. I am not leaving him alone." It took time. It took paperwork. It took arguments with people who did not understand. But in the end, when the transport ship left for Earth was on it, sitting beside Sora, looking out the window at the stars. He did not know where they were going. He did not speak her language. He did not understand human customs or food or weather. But he understood one thing. She had come for him when no one else would. She had stood between him and death. She had held him when he was afraid. She had not let go. That was all he needed to know. Dr. Shinbai stayed behind to help rebuild medical facilities. She trained their doctors in human techniques. They trained her in theirs. Together, they built something new, something better. A young nurse asked her the same question Elder had asked weeks before. "Why did you come?" Bai thought about her answer. She thought about the journey, the battle, the wounded and the dying, the children she had saved and the ones she could not. "Because the universe is cold and dark and vast," she said finally. "And the only thing that makes it bearable is knowing that when you cry out for help, someone will answer." The nurse did not fully understand, but she remembered the words. Years later, when she became a doctor herself, she traveled to a distant world where another species was suffering. She went alone, without orders, without support. Because someone had asked for help. And that was enough. Across the galaxy, the story spread. The humans who had come when no one else would. The tiny fleet that had stood against an empire. The soldiers who had died for strangers. Other species began to ask themselves hard questions. What would they have done? Would they have answered the call? Would they have risked everything for people they had never met? The answers were uncomfortable, but uncomfortable answers were the first step toward change. The Galactic Union was never the same after that. Something had shifted. Something had woken up. The old ways of careful non-intervention, of protecting yourself first, of looking away from suffering, began to crumble. Because the humans had shown them a different way. Not a better technology, not a stronger military, just a simple idea that changed everything. When someone asks for help, you answer. That is what it means to be human. And maybe, just maybe, that is what it should mean to be alive. The stars were no longer so cold. Because now everyone knew. If you called for help, someone would come. Someone would always come.